Councilman Beal.
Here.
Councilwoman Bettina.
Here.
Councilman Phillips.
Here.
Councilman Casella.
Here.
Supervisor Thurston.
Here, everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Tonight we are here for the special and exclusive reason of my presentation to the board of my tentative budget, which we've been working on. Before I talk about the budget, I'd just like to say how all of us are so deeply saddened by the sudden passing of an amazing man, our sheriff, Butch Anderson. We'll have more to say, in the future, but I want you to know that he is a giant among giants, and I think a friend to all of us. He spoke, gave an amazing speech, except maybe Bill might not consider it, at our inauguration, last inauguration in 2020, where he came and, as I said, a friend to all of us. And so I've posted that. It's online. I gave a kind of a little eulogy this morning in my tape. So please, everyone, look at it. But I'd just like to pause for a moment of silence for a great man who we've lost. Okay. Butch, may you rest in peace, and we'll never forget you by any means. So tonight I present to the town board and the town of Wappinger my tentative budget. I've met with the various department heads throughout the last few weeks reviewing the department proposals. And because the initial proposals, as is often the case, would have resulted in exceeding the tax cap, actually fairly significantly, I've scaled it back. And we'll have chance to the board and also for the departments to talk more about that. This year, the New York State Controller has set the tax cap at 2%. This past year, for this year's budget that we're executing, was 1.56, I believe. So it's fluid every year. It changes. So that means that we have to be responsive to that and the needs of the community. And so this year, we've bringing it, in line. The budget that I proposed actually is at 2% tax cap because of the expenses that we do want to incur. And you'll hear more about that in a little bit. The tentative budget for the town and all of its special districts is proposed at a total of $17,264,519. In the general townwide A fund, you'll recall we have several different funds. Townwide A fund, which basically funds most of the town operations, including town hall staff, employees. A budget is proposed to be $5,143,300. General part town B fund is $1,573,153, and $4,274,018 for the highway department, which is known as the DB fund. As I noted, the tentative budget is in line with the tax levy cap limit, and this year the tax levy for the town under this proposed budget and the special districts, it's proposed at $8,717,611 for 2022. This is up approximately $200,000 from the 2021 budget. For the purpose of the tentative budget, I am proposing that at this point in time we maintain conservative revenue projections due to uncertainties concerning COVID and also economic. We're not sure where the economy is going, and therefore the projections for revenue are down, somewhat in line with what we did for this year's budget. And very well, they could change. We could have greater clarity before we finalize the budget in November. And so therefore, some of this that we're talking about may very well change. The A fund balance has been appropriated in this budget to a tune of about $493,000. That means we're taking $490,000 out of the A fund and dedicated it toward the budgetary costs. The A fund has been healthy, and we do expect that the end of this year, revenues coming in will make it even further healthy, so we don't anticipate that that will be a major drawdown, and hopefully then when we look at expenses, we'll be able to manage that. The increases in our budget of this about $200,000 has been largely due, almost exclusively due to pension costs, health insurance, and medical costs, some degree of inflation built in, and union negotiated wage increases. That's where we have to look after our employees, try to address their concerns, and that has resulted then in a village tax rate proposed to increase by 2 cents from 77 cents to 79 cents per 1,000 assessed value. That's the homestead, homestead part of it. So we've tried to keep it really, still low compared to previous when I came into office, and some of us were here then, and the rest have joined. We inherited a budget that was planned before that, and that was at 83 cents. Per $1,000, as Councilman Beal will remember. So we're still keeping it pretty well in line. The town rate is proposed to increase by 3 cents from $1.86 to $1.89 per thousand. Again, when I came into office, it was $1.97, and in fact, the following year it was $1.93 per $1,000. So I still think that the budget is very good and in line with what we're being requested by our residents. You'll hear a little bit about that. And I think that we're looking at the really improved environment, and particularly too, and I want to just talk a couple minutes, is just to mention again, as I have, is that we floated some bonds the other day in order to fund a number of these projects, such as sewer, water, highway garage, the parks renovation, and that came out very well. In fact, we got a very low interest rate. We were projecting originally in the budget at $2.25 as the interest rate on that. We were looking per the dollar there, but now we came in at around $1.67. And the lowest bidder, they were all bidding for the bonds. We had quite active bidding. The bands, which is really kind of the interim, came in around 37 cents. So very favorable, and it's a result of the extreme confidence that I think the investment community has in the town. And this is a result of all the hard work that we've done, and also our staff has done, and other elected officials. As I've mentioned already, the Standard & Poor's, which is the largest rating agency and also independent, fairly tough. They did a lot of interviews for issuing this, has continued to maintain for this bond issuance, as well as our debt security going forward, the AA+ rating, which is quite well, and they've actually indicated in the report, which I think the clerk is putting into the minutes from the last meeting, and we have available, that they said, all else being equal, we could raise the rating if what we're forecasting holds true, and a couple other factors. But that I don't think we've seen, and that would mean going to a AAA. We're not planning for that. We're planning for a budget in line that will continue the emphasis and what they've placed in us. I think I'll just read a couple of the key things. Today in the business community, in the government community, and I think we have all businessmen and women here, one of the important things that is looked at increasingly is what they call ESG, environment, social, and governance. In this regard, the Standard & Poor's evaluated our town's performance in these areas and found that they viewed very positively, I'm quoting, the comprehensive measures the town has taken to protect itself from emerging risks, the seamless transitions that we've had, and also note that thanks to investments in elevating critical infrastructure, such as our wells, and protection generally of the environment, they are giving us this very strong rating with respect to ESG. They view the economy, they've independently looked at it as being very strong. You know, the jobs that are being created are extremely strong. We're getting new investments such as Hudson Valley Lighting directly into the town. I also have in the Southern Dutchess News that came out this week a much more detailed report on the strong economic factors that our board has been very much involved in going forward. I take great pride in, and I know each of the board members does, and our staff, and where they quote, "We have revised our management score to very strong from strong. The town's management is having strong financial policies and practices under our FMA methodology. Wappinger's strong management team maintains several robust financial policies and practices, also a set of comprehensive long-term financial and capital plans. We also view positively that the town's policies have continued to evolve over the past couple of years, and particularly with these fine men and women supporting this over the last two. And Bill has led the way over too many decades he doesn't want to admit, but anyway. We believe that these conservative budgeting practices and management's anticipation of an impending economic slowdown for 2020, even before COVID hit, allowed the town to maintain a strong financial position throughout the pandemic. You know, Wappinger's budgetary flexibility is very strong. And in our opinion, Wappinger's liquidity is very strong, with total government available cash at 77.6% of total government fund expenditures. And you know, quite honestly, we continue to keep the eye on this very closely. Not only does our controller and myself as budget officer, but each of the board members really participates actively, and I will say proactively, sometimes to a little bit of my frustration, but certainly I say that affectionately in the sense that they are looking out for you, our community. No question about that whatsoever. So with that, I guess, why don't we present the budget, then I'll open up to my fellow board members for a few comments after they receive the budget from Cooper Leatherwood, our clerk in residence, and signed off on this budget that I submitted, right, Cooper?
Yep.
Yep. Thank you.
Cooper, thank you.
Thank you, Cooper.
Thank you.
As he's handing that out, we will have over the next a number of weeks through August and early November, each of our board meetings and some special meetings will be dedicated largely to budget review. There will be chance for the public to comment, and so we look forward to hearing from you. And of course, you can comment, also through email, phone calls to each one of our councilwomen and men. Don't let them off the hook, challenge them, but they're out there working for you, working very hard for you. So please, show us, your interest and volunteer for something. So with that, I'll start with Ward 1.
I'll yield to my colleagues and offer comments in just a moment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, fellow board members, our supervisor here. I just want to say that our town has had many accomplishments this term. We've kept taxes down. We deliver key services to many of our residents, such as water and sewer. During COVID, we kept our town open while maintaining the safety of our residents and our employees. We're committed to the economic growth and vitality of our community. We want to continue to encourage the creation of real paying jobs. We control our government spending and protect our environment from urban sprawl. And we continue to develop recreation programs for our seniors and young adults. We established a human resource department for our town employees. In conjunction with our highway department, many of our roads, as you've noticed, have been paved to improve safety and the volume of traffic that are on them. As a resident of the town of Wappinger, if you have an issue that has not been addressed, please reach out to your council person or the town board directly. We have accomplished all of these things within our budget. That is a difficult thing to do. I'm sure all of you have seen how the prices of everything has gone up, but we have you in mind. We are here for you, the residents of the town of Wappinger. We will endeavor to improve the 2022 budget and continue to build on these accomplishments. Again, thank you for your trust. Thank you for being a resident of the town of Wappingers. Stay safe, and again, reach out to your council person, reach out to the board as a whole with any questions or concerns or issues to improve things, or just let us know how we're doing. Thank you. I yield to the rest, and
Thank you, Councilwoman Bettina.
to this board also. It's an awesome
Thank you.
board. We all work well
Yeah.
together. We do challenge.
Yeah, no, it's great. Councilman
you.
Phillips.
To Supervisor's remarks, the town board works in an incredibly fiscally responsible manner. It's amazing. Before I was on the board, I didn't realize the magnitude of the expenditures and the costs to run a town. This board acts in an incredibly fiscally responsible manner. Last year, during an unprecedented event, we handled the COVID crisis first class. We led the county in response. We led the county in keeping our services and the town hall open. We were always there for our constituents. We continue to pave our highways at a much larger rate than most of the other towns in the county. We lead the county in that regard. We've purchased 3 new very large snowplow machines, and again, our highway department is first class. Through these past floods and through the events over the last year and a half, they've been pretty intensive and incredible, and the men and women of the highway department are out there daily, and this town owes them a gratitude of thanks. For me in the town, in the 3rd Ward, we've put a new playground in Quiet Acres. We've started rehabbing Spook Hill. So, and these are all done with a flat tax rate. Our taxes are one of the lowest in the county, and our services continue to grow. So I'm so proud of this board. I'm proud of the men and women that work for this town, and they all deserve a round of applause and all of our respect. So I thank you for being able to work with you all and see what we can do for this year's budget.
Thank you, Councilman
Thank you.
Phillips. Councilman Casella.
So first of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about, I'd like to pay my condolences to Butch Anderson's family and all of his colleagues at the Sheriff's Department. Butch was a good friend of mine and somebody I greatly respected. He used to say to me, I know that guy. So if you don't know Butch, he would always say that. But I made the mistake one time of teasing him in an event, and I learned my lesson very quickly that you never do that to Butch when he has a mic. So he was a staunch champion for our community, and he will be greatly missed. So again, my condolences to his family. What I wanted to do now was to segue into the next area a little bit here. So the supervisor covered this a little bit on our rating of the AA+. I think that's an outstanding rating that I believe will continue to grow. As the supervisor said, we have a strong flexibility with available fund balances. As we talked about, they're very strong, both A, B, and DB funds. The outlook is stable for the town with potential upside that could raise our rating. Bottom line is our financials are in strong position, and we're well positioned to do more for the community. This is a result of the town board's proactive planning and fiscal responsibility. So let me just talk about some of the things that we've accomplished so far from a town perspective, and I know a couple of the other council people have mentioned this. But again, we've kept our taxes flat year over year, 20 to 21, and they're basically going to be flat 21 to 22 based on the preliminary budget we received from the supervisor. As Councilman Phillips mentioned, we paved more miles this year than we've ever done in the past. We've done 6.5 miles. Previously, we did 5 miles, and we've already got money bonded to do 2022. We did 3 brand new parks. Mr. Phillips talked about Quiet Acres. I have 2 in my area. I have Rockingham, and we also have Spook Hill. The other park that we're looking at, we've done some significant improvements on, is Martsfield. We've done some things for the tennis courts, pickleball courts, a number of things we've done there to make improvements, all staying within confined of our budget. We've updated the highway garage. We're in the process of, we bonded $1.2 million, number of updates we're going to make there. We've also received $2.4 million from the federal government, specifically for infrastructure. So that's split over a 2-year period. So we're going to go ahead and put that back into the community, specifically, again, for water and sewer. So we're going to take that money, we're going to put that money back into the community. The other major thing we've done is for the ADA bathroom down at Robinson Lane, a significant project which is currently completed. The bathrooms have arrived. The sewer system is being put in now. Water has been run. Significant progress. And if you get an opportunity, please go out on a Sunday afternoon at 11:30 and check out the games. We've also put a lot of money into Robinson Lane for the fields, for a number of things. We're actually, thanks to the board here, being very proactive on some things that happened recently with the Storm Ida. We just approved about $100,000, so I want to thank the board for that. And again, we're being very, very conservative, as the supervisor said earlier, about revenues we expect to receive. So we do have very good fund balances. We're hopefully continue to do that. We do have a number of people here that have financial backgrounds on the town board. And so I look forward to working with my fellow council people. I think they've done an outstanding job. I appreciate all the hard work that our supervisor did in putting this budget together. You know, there are changes that, you know, we want to probably take a look at, because the residents have mentioned a number of things here, including water and sewer, which seems to be a common topic quite a bit. Recreation, they want to see a little more from recreation, whether it be tennis courts, you know, things like that. Also just general maintenance, you know, property maintenance, things like taking care of some of the memorials we have today, as an example, the one over at Mart's Field. So again, those are all things we know. We want to make sure that, and I'm sure the supervisor has already got this in his budget, that the Buildings and Grounds Department has sufficient money to do a lot of the things, because he's got a list of 100 plus he needs to recover. So, you know, we're looking at that. And of course, there's other things we need to take a look at as well. We know we had a number of floodings that happened during Ida, and so we need to address that as well. But again, I want to thank the board for their help, their support, their patience. Great job on the budget last year, and I expect this to be a smooth budget this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate all your support, and particularly, you go out almost any day, you'll see Councilman Casella out there, not batting balls, but batting heads to make sure things get done. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Strong support there. Councilman Beal, would you like to wrap it up?
Sure. Again, I did have an opportunity to speak about this at the last town board meeting. Receiving this S&P report certainly was refreshing, but not a surprise, to be honest with you. This town board takes our responsibilities as custodians of this town very seriously. And of course, I'm biased sitting here telling you this, but I've been a part of 5 different administrations here, and I can tell you that the focus of this particular board at this moment in time has never been more specific to fiscal accountability. And the reason why, and we talked about this 18 months ago, was the bottom basically was falling out of our revenues. And going into a public health emergency and, you know, dealing with, you know, uncharted waters, we really had to almost micromanage the budget process from that point moving forward, which we don't want to have to do, but rather than having quarterly budget reviews, it went to monthly budget reviews. And, you know, basically having our comptroller attend every other meeting and really keeping our eye on our spending and making sure that we're going to be able to cover the expenses, especially going into the final quarter, which we're in right now. Many municipalities get into trouble in the last quarter, and it's refreshing to see that we're on solid ground. And I have to thank the supervisor for not just his management, which is identified within the S&P report, but his leadership. And I believe there's a distinct difference between management and leadership. And leadership involves making tough decisions that often aren't going to be applauded from everyone in town hall. And some of these decisions that had to be made between board meetings were not an option. And we needed that type of leadership in order to help navigate this particular scenario that we're hopefully coming out of. But back to the report for a second. You know, the S&P report clearly indicates that the town of Wappinger has a strong economy, and that is that's good news as we move forward. If we have a strong economy right now with the uncertainties that exist in our town, we can only continue to get stronger, in my opinion. The very strong management aspect of it, I view as a collective attribute towards the board and the staff, as the supervisor pointed out. I mean, we have people here that are crunching numbers every day, whether it be a department head or whether it be the controller, and many times red flags are noticed in advance of it becoming an issue, and we greatly appreciate that proactive thinking. The very strong budgetary flexibility aspect of the report, I think, goes right along with the fact that sometimes we gripe about transferring funds every other meeting, but we're keeping appropriations in line. We're not working out of empty appropriation lines. I think we're doing a good job to make sure that, yes, if we have to move money from one to another, it's done in an efficient manner. So that said, dealing with COVID, dealing with a number of municipalities in Dutchess County that basically went totally remote and did not offer services, I really think we went above and beyond to continue to offer the critical services. And let's face it, we had to make some decisions here that were kind of in the dark because there wasn't guidance yet in some situations, right? We talked about this. There's no guidance from the CDC on this. How do we handle this? We have, an event coming up tomorrow, or we have a public hearing that we want to make sure that the residents have access to. How can we do this in a safe manner? And sure enough, our staff members found solutions, whether it be putting a tent outside, right?
Yep.
Or whether it be putting big screen TVs out in the foyer, right? Or whether it be, measuring 6 feet. It's going to sound crazy when we look back on the things that we had to do, but we really had the ability to continue operating government and continue that transparency that I think is very important, and allowed our residents to participate in government during a time that many municipalities didn't or couldn't, right? So I think that's important. That goes along with our transparency and functionality here in this town. As we move forward, we continue to identify vulnerabilities from a management perspective, and we continue to identify as we go into the budget process, how can we improve operations. Councilwoman Bettina pointed out, we created an HR department, right? I mean, that was a gap that we identified as a board. That was a gap that we discussed for many hours, right? And came up with a qualified individual.
For a few years as well.
I know. It was one of those discussions that we never thought was going to end. And as the regulations continued to pile up and we needed a qualified individual, we were lucky enough to hire a qualified HR person to be here, right? As we move forward, critical infrastructure needs to be pointed out, the investment in critical infrastructure, right? Municipalities in this county, there are a number of municipalities that do not have a sufficient water supply. They do not have a sufficient wastewater process, right?
Yep.
We have continued to invest in this critical infrastructure, which I think is very important. Lastly, critical resource protection. Water. Water, we talk about water more than most municipalities. We're always looking for redundancies, whether it be to provide for fire protection, or whether it be to provide for the village, or whether it be for the village to provide for us, right? These are conversations that not every municipality has. And I think that by having these conversations and bonding the necessary funding, taking advantage of the low interest rates so that we can have redundancies in place, that is protecting our residents on a level that many municipalities are not doing. So I thank you for...
Before you end, would you just make a brief comment about public safety and security?
Sure. So from a public safety standpoint in this town, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes discussions that occur that aren't always appropriate to have from the dais during meetings about emergency medical services. There happens to be an EMS crisis in Dutchess County right now, okay? This town has been proactive with contracting advanced life support ambulances and making sure they're in this town. There have been some scenarios here recently where our ambulances have had to assist other municipalities. I have to give the town board and the supervisor credit. We have diplomatically and tactfully made sure that those other municipalities understand that we have to make sure our resources remain in our town. And I think it's working to the benefit of the neighboring municipality that needed a little nudge to do something, okay? From a police protection side, the sheriff's office, we continue to increase funding to our sheriff's office for the purposes of quality of life patrols, right? And on the same note, we make sure that our emergency services building is up to par for our New York State police partners that basically pay us to cover our town, which is a unique situation. They rent our building. They have increased the square footage for the state police in the last few years. We now have more law enforcement on our campus here, whether they be patrol or whether they be detectives or whether they be bosses. They are right here on our campus, and we believe as a town that that fabric of law enforcement is protecting us as a whole. So this is a town, as the supervisor said at the most recent First Responder Awards, this is a town that doesn't hesitate to tell our residents, we support our law enforcement partners, we support our emergency medical service partners, and our volunteer fire department members that volunteer hundreds of hours a year. This town greatly appreciates their service as well, and altogether, that's our community, right? These are the people that protect others in this town, and we can't thank them enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So I think, anybody else have anything else? Otherwise, we're going to close this up. I know we have a historian and a great presentation coming afterwards, not part of the board meeting, but thank you to our councilmen and women, to our staff, to our community for the support, and we look forward to discussing the budget items and going forward, explain a little bit more about what is happening and what we envision the future to be. Thank you and good night. And we have a motion to close the meeting?
I make a motion to
Second.
adjourn.
Okay, a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.